The sun is shining, the blossom's out, and I've even got my old buddy out here with me today. And I just so happen to also have a Webley Tracker. I can think of a worse way to start a Friday. So the Tracker will be our second episode on our classic airgun review series, and it's certainly a really interesting part of Webley's history. One of the things that make it so interesting is the fact that, much like the Osprey that came before it, the Tracker is an incredibly divisive little gun. Most agree it's a gorgeous looking little thing, but there's definitely more than a few out there that state the Tracker would miss the ground if you buried the barrel in the earth. So as a blatant Webley fanboy, I have to wonder, is it really that bad? Let's start off with features and find out. First thing I'll mention is that this rifle has clearly had some use and shows a few war wounds. Trackers were certainly not cabinet queens back in the day, that's for sure. That said, starting off at the rear of the rifle, we have a nicely finished recoil pad with the Webley logo proudly on show. Moving on to the cheek piece, and this one in particular is a right-handed stock. That being said, it isn't too aggressive, and I couldn't see a lefty having too much trouble shooting it. Further along we get to the safety, or the lack of it in this instance. It's fairly common to see older Webleys without safeties in the UK, unfortunately. Coming down we have the trigger, which is a fairly basic affair, but we'll find out how it feels when we get to the handling section. One of the things that gives the Tracker its somewhat elegant looks is the fact that it's a side lever operated rifle. It's also fitted with an anti-bear trap mechanism. In regards to loading, the Tracker uses a rotary breech or tap loading system. Where the sight post would be, you also get this lovely little plaque with the Webley logo. Then, as we get to the business end, you can see a barrel weight, which will hopefully help to tame any muzzle flip we might find. Finally, I have to mention the metalwork. This old girl did have some surface rust that I had to get rid of, but despite all of this, look at that finish. You can't beat classic Webley blacking. So with features out of the way, let's move on now to handling. It's time to see how it all comes together in the shoulder. Okay, so handling and the Webley Tracker, what do we think? Well, it's a funky little beast. I'll tell you for why. Length of pull on it is really short. You can see here, I'm with my big Mr. Tickle arms, I'm having to sort of tuck my right arm in quite a lot. Now I actually quite like that on this gun. It doesn't feel uncomfortable, and the reason for it is because it's a hunting gun. It's not designed to have a great big stock with a gigantic cheek piece. It's designed to be a quick little lightweight, fast handling little rifle that, again, you could shoot out your car window if you wanted, obviously on your permissions and such like that. The front end though, there is a bit of weight going there, and this basically because there's a lot going on. You've obviously got the side lever mechanism running along. The scope on here is a Nico Sterling Platinum, a semi-period-esque 3-40 scope. Not the heaviest, but you can feel there's definitely most of the weight is in your leading hand, and obviously you've got your barrel weight on the front end as well, which will be shifting the bias forwards. So if you don't like nose heavy guns, you might not like the Tracker. However, what I will say, nose heavy guns do also have the added benefit of most of the time they reduce muzzle flip. So it could actually work in the Tracker's favour downrange. But enough of that, let's move on to the fun stuff. So first thing we're going to have a little look at and listen to is the anti-bear trap mechanism. Now this can make or break a gun for me, and personally some guns are very loud, notchy you could say, with the anti-bear trap mechanisms, which does put me off. Or you've got to be an octopus to keep pressing the buttons and all sorts while you're trying to load your pellet. With this, it's nice and easy. So push the button in the side lever to release it. You get a little bit of spring assistance as well. And after that, just like that, and then close it up and you're ready to go. Due to the, or rotating I should say, not sliding, the rotating breech nature of the gun, it's also a very safe gun to operate to go with it. And quite easy to load as well. The pellet just plops straight in. Now rotating breech rifles do have a disadvantage though, and that is air efficiency most of the time. So we will see maybe if it's not particularly consistent through the chronograph, or maybe see what the power's doing. If it's low on power, I think these should be around 10-ish feet-pounds. But if it's a bit low over time, you can sometimes lose a bit of efficiency there. But let's have a little go. Don't know what I'm taking aim for. There's nothing out there, it's just an empty field. So let's get a feel for that trigger. Right, a couple of points I'm going to make. Point one, as the random nature of second-hand guns does tend to be this way, I have no idea what the internals are like on this gun, but what I will say is there is no way that's standard, or maybe there was a limited run of Webleys that did not have a super heavy trigger and also had very little twang whatsoever. I'm quite confident this has been a part, because if you saw that then, granted, the trigger is still basic, and at the same time, how can I put it, there was still a little bit of recoil there. There is no way that's what every tracker is like from what I've read. From what I've read, they tend to be one publication whose name escapes me, but if I can find it, it was quite a good read, I'll put it in the description. The trigger pull was 4 pounds. They was basic. This is not. It is a single stage, but watch this, little finger. Off it goes. And did you hear the lack of twang as well? I'm quite confident this has been had at. It's either that or the spring has snapped in half, something along those lines, but judging by how I could feel the tension, I don't think that's the case. We'll see what it's doing through the chronograph. It could be quite interesting depending on which way this is going to go. But to be fair, that is lovely. But I will say, take this review with an absolute mountain of salt, for the reasons that the tracker you pick up may not be as sorted as this one, or it might be better. Who knows? Second-hand guns. It's again the risk we take. That's the word I was trying to think of. The sun's getting to me. But no, to be fair with you, this one, I'll say, is a lovely shooting gun. The trigger, yes, is still not heavy, but crude. It is a single stage. I don't mind that though. Shot cycle, again, on this one is quite sweet, but bear in mind, from things I've read online, they can be a little harsh. So again, take this review with a pinch of salt. What this review will be interesting for is that if this is a tuned tracker, we're going to see what a tuned tracker can actually do downrange and through the chronograph, which is where we're heading next. So let's get the chrono out, chuck it on the table and see what numbers we get. So with chronograph testing out of the way, it's time to get to the fun stuff. 25 yards, accuracy testing. And with that somewhat disappointing showing out of the way, it's time this sad Webley fanboy shuffled his way to the final verdict. So, with that said, the final verdict of the Webley Tracker, what do we think? Well, if you've ever heard the phrase, never meet your heroes, well, I think that applies here. What I will say as a disclaimer is that this rifle has been tuned by the previous owner, so take this review with a pinch of salt. Odds are the one you buy may shoot differently compared to this one. That said, we can still get an idea as to what the tracker is like, and with this rifle at least, I can say accurate it is not. I can say with experience that an Exocet, Amiga, Vulcan, and even the little Falcon will outshoot it reasonably comfortably. Power-wise, they should be doing around 10 feet-pounds, but that would also come with a heavier trigger to go with it, unlike the rifle on test. So bear that in mind. That being said, there are some positives to come with the gun. For starters, it's a beautiful thing to look at. The blacking, as per usual with Webley, is absolutely second to none, and it still looks almost brand new to this day. It's also a lovely and solid feeling rifle, being silky smooth to operate. The anti-bear trap mechanism is also far less intrusive compared to most, which is great as well. The absolute best thing about the tracker, however, is that despite its flaws, the rifle is undeniably fun to shoot. I usually don't like side lever springers, as they're just a bit of a faff most of the time, but in this instance it actually added to the charm, if anything. After a few pellets, it becomes second nature to load. The Webley Tracker to me is a bit like that project car that you see in some of the online ads and such like that. A car that you might have wanted all your life, but you know there's baggage with it. It's unreliable, it's got faults, and this one's gone through multiple different owners. But you still look at it and you get that twinge and think, yeah, but I bet I'm the one that can fix that. That'll work for me. That to me is the Webley Tracker. So to sum it all up to you ladies and gentlemen at home, should you go and scratch that itch to buy a tracker? Despite the problems, I'm going to say yes, because I know that at some point you've probably seen the tracker on a gun shop wall, saw how pretty it was, and then thought about it. And I'll put it this way, if you don't get it, someone else most definitely will. And who knows, you might just be the one that can fix it or find that pellet that it really likes. And if you can get that done, what a lovely little gun this really would be. And with that out of the way, I want to say thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.